We're back with Eddie Trunk, the man of the hour. He's got the hosting gig here at Hair Nation. And I know how much you love that hair metal term. It is, I mean, you look at so many of these artists now when they're bald, or, you know, Klaus Meine and Jeff Tate, and, you know, I don't know what the hair has to do with it, but, you know.
I don't name them. I don't name them, I just host them.
I know. Now, obviously, you put your fingers in a lot of pies. You got the podcast and the radio show and everything. Now, how do we get the radio show out here? You have the XM Sirius. Give us the full rundown, because I know you got the books and all that.
Well, you know, that metal show, we're looking for a new home for that right now. We have, but interestingly enough, VH1 Classic changed recently to MTV Classic, and they're running the old shows on MTV Classic. Okay. So that's led to some people kind of lobbying, saying, well, maybe MTV Classic will do new shows. I have no idea. I'm kind of separated from the whole thing, so I don't know what's happening. Yeah. I hope that the show gets picked up. I hope we find a new home. In the meantime, I've got 3 or 4 really major new projects coming. Unfortunately, too early to talk about them, but both TV and radio coming down the line. So I'm excited about stuff coming, but things happening now, as you mentioned. The Sirius XM show, which I call Trunk Nation, is Mondays, and that's from 3 to 7 Pacific on Channel 39. I have a syndicated show on about 35 cities on FM radio. Fortunately, KLOS refuses to run it here so far, but maybe one day. But you can hear it streaming online. I've got the podcast, as you mentioned, that's new every Thursday. It's free. It's on iTunes or Podcast One. And I mentioned I was doing Access TV, and then, of course, all the social media stuff that I have, which is the main things are my site, which is eddietrunk.com, and my Twitter, which I'm most active on, and that's just at Eddie Trunk. Yeah.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about the concept of the pilot with Ace? Is that where you basically go like an hour in depth with an artist? Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's a one-on-one interview show with a live audience. I shot it in New York a couple months ago at a legendary club called Iridium. Came out great. The biggest challenge was that he and I started talking, and it went for 2.5 hours. So I need to cut that back to about 48 minutes for TV. And I just had to edit out some of the most incredible stuff, and it just killed me to do it. But we'll see what happens. Maybe if the show gets picked up, that stuff can be used as bonus content. Yeah. But all indications are very good that show will get picked up. Okay. So I'm excited about that. It's called Inside Out, and I'm hoping that for good things for that. But it's something I always wanted to do, a very comprehensive sort of one-on-one in-depth interview show. So that's one of the projects that, assuming it gets picked up, will be another TV thing.
Well, that's why we like the podcast so much. You can get more in depth. Obviously, on that metal show, whatever, it's very tight time frame and the segments and all that. Now, we really commend you to keep the music, the new music, alive. You know, we all love these classics, but even back then, you know, it was all about new music, new music, new music. You know, we all came up with freeform FM radio and idolizing Jim Ladd and all these guys. I mean, it must have been really sad to see the demise, how corporate radio got over the years, and how, like we all know, all of our favorite artists are making new music, but it's a struggle to get it out. And obviously you're a beacon in that darkness, but you know, going through that, I mean, what was that evolution like, seeing the lack of support for new music?
Well, it's certainly a tough thing right now, tougher than ever, and I have prided myself on my entire career, coming up on 34 years now in radio, to always play new music, not only new music from classic artists, but new music from new bands. And it's really harder than ever for these bands to get their music exposed, played anywhere. Like, nobody touches it, and it's unfortunate because there's a lot of it that's really good. And I wish people had more of an open mind. I wish they gave it more support. But if things don't change in the near future for it, these guys are going to stop making records. They're going to stop making new music. They're not going to bother. So for me, I'm lucky because I started doing something a really long time ago and kind of carved out my own niche. The one condition about what I do on all my radio shows is that I control it all as far as what I play, what I say, who I have on. That's the only thing. I don't get paid a lot of money to do them. It's not about that. But I need to make sure that I have the autonomy to be able to play what I want to play, have on who I want to have on, say what I want to say. But there's a lot of syndicated radio shows that people hear that are honestly way bigger than mine. And you know what? The hosts have nothing to do with what they play. Or they interview bands and they allow the radio stations to chop the interviews out or change the songs out. I would never do that. That's the whole reason I got into radio, is to help expose these things. So there are guys out there and shows out there that profess all this support for this new music, but then they turn around and they allow their radio stations to alter their songs. Never understood that. So for me, I'm very proud of the fact that I do what I do. If you like it or don't like it, it's all on me. And it served me and a lot of artists well for a really long time, and I'm very proud of that. And that's what it's always been about, exposing this music and having it treated respectfully.
Yeah, well, I know with a lot of these bands, the lifeblood of what they do as an artist is to create. And the fact that in a show, and the bigger the show they get, even in Irvine Meadows, they go into a new song and the crowd starts to thin out. I mean, it's really, really hard for them to keep playing the songs they made 30 years ago, and people unaccepting of anything new. What are your hopes as far as a lot of this technology, whether it be streaming or whatever, that will open up new avenues for people to, get heard or basically be able to kind of dial in their own sound, what they like?
Well, it's a bit of a catch-22, because it does make it really easy and free for people to hear music. But the other problem, though, with it is it also very much floods the marketplace. So anybody can put up music, anybody can make a record. And as a result, it makes it really difficult to stand out. So it used to be like, if somebody handed you a CD, you knew that they had jumped some hurdles. Like, nobody could make a CD unless you had a record deal. Now, anybody can make music, anybody can make a CD, anybody can post stuff online. So it's made the pool of what you can hear 10 times bigger, which, again, pro and con to it. The con being it's harder to stand out. It's harder to get clicked on. We're in an unfortunate place. If you make your living trying to sell music, we're in a really unfortunate place at the moment, because we're in a place where artists are just trying to get their music heard. Forget about trying to get them to buy it, people to buy it. Trying to get it heard. Here, take it, just listen. I think that sucks, I hope it comes back around, but I think the younger generation is going to have a completely different relationship with music than we did growing up.
Of course. I mean, we're just a few yards away from the legendary Tower Records, and you could spend an hour or two in there with the singles and the magazines and the DVDs.
I just watched the documentary on that. It was great.
The first 2/3, the greatest thing. The last third is the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Although at the end, I was very encouraged to see that CDs were so strong in Japan. And that Japan, it was kind of a flourishing business. So I was excited by that, at least.
One bright note.
Yeah.
I know you worked in retail in the Northeast. It's hard to describe that experience to these youngsters of what they're missing, of going into a store and just getting lost and asking the guy behind the counter, what is that I'm hearing, and what's new? And every week you open up those boxes, it was like Christmas every week.
Right. Yeah. Totally. I mean, we still have some great record stores here in LA. You got Amoeba. By me in New Jersey, we have one called Vintage Vinyl. It's been there forever. So we do still have some stores out there, and I would encourage people to absolutely support those stores if you still have one. It's good to see that people are buying vinyl again. Anything that people buy that's physical is great as far as I'm concerned, because they're buying it. It's a real tangible thing. So I believe that there are some encouraging signs with that coming back. But yeah, the whole thing of, remember, release day was Tuesday and people lining up to get the next record. And
midnight on a Monday, they were lined up on Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, I mean, we used to work in the store, used to make sure you got all the records priced and ready to go the night before, and that door would open, and if it was a Springsteen record or the new Def Leppard record or Van Halen, you just you just take them right out of the box and sell them. It was a great time, but it was just, again, people at that point also used to line up to buy concert tickets. And so I'm all for technology, and I understand everything has to change, but when it comes to music, people's relationship with music has just completely changed, and unfortunately most of them feel like it's not something that should be purchased anymore.
Very, very sad to hear. Now, all that you've seen, obviously bands need to stand out, artists need to be as original as possible, but what other advice? I know it's hard to advise the business because it's constantly morphing, but what advice do you have to the young creative people coming up today?
Pay attention to songwriting. I mean, I hear from so many people about their newest band that's coming out, and they'll all sit there and talk about great guitar player, great image, great singer, great this, great that. Fine, that's all good. But do you have great songs? To me, songs are what stand the test of time. Great songs. Can you write great songs? And unfortunately, a lot of bands surround themselves with people that tell them what they want to hear instead of the truth. And they don't take a step back and they scratch their heads wondering why they're not getting anywhere. And then they sit there and think, wait a minute, are our songs any good? It's a really basic question, but to me, it's the most special talent to be a great songwriter, and it's a very hard thing to find great songwriters. But stack it up against some of the timeless songs you've ever heard. Do your songs stack up to that? Are you writing great songs? And I think that's really important. And then maybe getting some outside voices who are willing to tell it to you straight. One of the things that happens to me all the time is I have people say to me, I want you to tell me the truth. Really tell me the truth, what you think. Okay, you really want me to tell you? Okay. And I tell them, and then they get mad. They get mad. And I'm like, well, if you wanted me to just butter your bread, don't ask me for what I think.
If you're an athlete on the field, do you think the coach is going to praise you every time you come off the field?
Right. Don't ask me what I think and then get mad at you for telling. If you don't want to know what I think, then fine, don't ask. But if you ask and I tell you, don't get mad if the answer isn't what you want. So I do my best.
They don't need one more yes man.
Yeah, I think that you really need some people to give it to you straight and get some objective opinions. And I think it's super important to work on your songwriting.
Yeah. Great White dipped into that Ian Hunter Once Bitten, and great
other people's songs.
Quiet Riot had to dip into that Slade catalog, and sometimes these bands come along and you find out the best song of their set, it was a classic from before. And that's something for bands to look at. Maybe go find a song that was a hit 30, 40 years ago, and then try and write something to that caliber.
Well, the key about those songs that you mentioned and some others is the fact that those songs in their original form were not big songs in the U.S. So people didn't know they were covers. Most people hearing those songs did not know they were covers. No one had heard "Come On Feel."
Barely knew Mott the Hoople, more or less Ian Hunter.
No one heard "Come On Feel the Noise" in America before. They didn't know it. Ace Frehley, New York Groove, that's a cover. Nobody heard the original song, so everybody thinks it's Ace's song. So, yeah, if you can find great songs that you can make your own that a lot of people don't know are covers, yeah, that's kind of a win-win. It's a good start, good base.
Absolutely. Eddie, always great to see you. Thanks so much for keeping rock alive. You're such an important pillar for us, and can't wait to see more shows on the air.
Appreciate
Thanks,
your kind
brother.
words. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.